VR.
Knock him out.
It's a nifty little thing that's come out in the past decade or so. A device that's only been dreamt about since the 80s is now something of the modern day, allowing one to transport themselves into the world of the game that they want to play, making them really a part of that world. But that's not really the truth, is it? Virtual reality is still in its infancy, and that means games need to take a lot of liberties with how they work. Some games are getting closer and closer to what we really wanted from VR, say games like Boneworks and Half-Life Alyx, which are two of my personal favourite VR games. But speaking of favourite games, you know what else is one of my favourite games? If you spend any amount of time on this channel, you'll probably know that I think Doom is an amazing game. And apart from the classics like Halo, it's one of the games that first introduced me to this style of FPS game. Now, when talking about Doom, there's a lot of describing words that we can use to, well, describe it. Included but not limited to fast-paced, brutal, explosive, fast-paced, awesome, cool, fast-paced, amazing, fast-paced, fun, and fast-paced. Okay, you get the point by now. One wouldn't expect Doom to work in this style of gameplay, and it doesn't. Man, I cannot stress how much this game sucks. You know it's bad when you're going over your notes for biology and install the game simply just to hate on it. In general, adapting a game that's so well known for a specific type of gameplay into VR is a huge challenge, but it isn't impossible. Take Half-Life Alyx for instance. It did what Doom tried to do, which was to try and adapt a 90s FPS game into the medium of VR. Now what exactly is the gameplay of Half-Life? Well, movement speed is high, you have a large arsenal of weapons, and the combat is exhilarating. Now, any game developer would struggle to adapt a game like this into VR, but the way that Valve sought out to achieve this goal was something we really hadn't seen before in the industry. Iconic parts of the original games were adapted into VR, being able to pick up a headcrab's lifeless body and have it actually feel like a headcrab, like it has weight to it, was really cool. The combat was also reworked to a slower style of game, but I think it really works for Half-Life, and it takes full advantage of the functionality of VR. Now, that's not to say that Half-Life is the perfect VR game, but it's pretty damn close. But that begs the question, how does Doom VFR take Doom's gameplay and translate it into VR?
Absolutnie okropna gra VR.
Well, it does this by doing absolutely none of the above. For starters, the game was an incredible pain to set up, especially for me trying to record it. It has this weird thing where it'll change the computer's resolution, and when I eventually did fix this, I couldn't record the game in full screen, which is why it's either zoomed in or you have this weird border around it. And even then, when I eventually did get past all that, the game would crash. In the graphics department, I will cut it a little slack. I mean, the game did come out in 2017. You can't really see it properly on screen until you're in the headset. I mean, apart from the hell areas, the game just looks kind of ugly, like, ew. What I can't cut it slack for, though, is the gameplay. I mentioned this a little in the intro, but Doom's gameplay really does not translate well into VR like this. It's a classic example of trying to port something that doesn't belong on a certain medium to that medium. I'm not saying they didn't make accommodations for the game to work in VR, but they just didn't make enough. Whilst I personally didn't find an issue with it, the sheer amount of people who got sick from this game's movement speed really should say it all. And yeah, you can turn down the movement speed, but when you do that, you then just end up dying more because you can't move away from enemy projectiles as easily. However, there is a simple solution for this. Many VR games have the ability to teleport. Again, this is something that Half-Life Alyx did really well. If you're stuck in a tight situation, you can teleport away from the enemies to dodge more easily. Now, Doom VFR does do this, but it's bound to quite possibly the worst part of the controller. In Half-Life Alyx, you just pull back on the thumbstick, and then it gives you the ability to teleport. In Doom, you have to press down on the thumbstick, but the thumbstick is also bound to other stuff, like movement, so one slight nudge and you're immediately out of the teleporting thing. Plus, there's also no option for turning with a thumbstick. A lot of VR games allow you to turn around with a thumbstick because not everybody's going to play the game standing up, for some reason. Which led to me oftentimes getting tangled up in my cables and tripping over myself, and this gave me an incredible fear considering I was playing the game right next to my PC setup. There isn't even any proper options for the controls in this game. I mean, damn, the tutorials don't even show up with the right controller. And yeah, the game did come out in 2017, and I'm using an Oculus controller. But here's the thing, the Oculus Rift came out in 2016! The year before! Look. Even if the controls were perfect and the movement was good, the game would still just feel awkward. These enemies were not designed to be fought in this way. They were made to be fought in an FPS game. And now that's all good and well, but it's not just the movement and combat that's a problem with Doom VFR. It's also the heaps of unnecessary rubbish that pad out the game. For starters, we have these stupid puzzle sections where you have to hack into like your tablet or something like that. Going from a fast run and gun game into a mobile game you'd play on your tablet is just jarring. These stupid minigames also come along with aligning lasers and putting out fires. Are you serious? There's nothing to benefit from these areas apart from padding out the game. They aren't fun. It feels as if it's a pretty lazy answer to what should we have the player do in between combat sections. Now, I'm not saying there isn't moments I enjoy playing the game, and I understand that it is an early attempt at VR. It's not going to be perfect. VR games back then generally, they kind of sucked. But it just feels so disappointing. Like, there's so much more we could have got from Doom, and now we can't go back and change history. But in future, if we're to get another Doom VR game, I think we could do things a little bit differently. A Doom horror game is something that the community has really wanted recently for some reason. If it were set during the event of Doom Eternal, and you say played as a survivor trying to get to an evac zone, that would be amazing. Combine that with a style of survival horror gameplay and the modern technology we have, we'd have an instant hit on our hands. But what do you think of Doom VFR? And let me know what suggestions you might have for a Doom VR spin-off that could work really well. I read all of my comments and I try the best to answer all of them too. And if you also want to make it easier for me to see your comments, then consider becoming a channel member. It's down there next to the subscribe button. But apart from that, that's all I've had to say today. So thank you for watching and have a nice day.